On ALL4HR and Business Solutions, LLC for all your HR needs. Our team uses innovative technology, effective human resource management strategies, practices, and procedures to complete the work. Our services include recruiting, training, development, compliance, employee relations, HR risk management, HRM day-to-day operations, and more. Contact us today to see what we can do for you.
Hello, everyone. Happy Talk About It Thursday. It is April Halliburton here, all for HR and Business Solutions. I hope everyone's day is off to a fantastic start. We are, as you know, founder and president of All for HR and Business Solutions. Been in business a little over 11 years. Our mantra, folks, is business can be like a circus. Don't let HR be the elephant in the room. If you have not had a chance, please follow us on Instagram at All4HR. We are on Twitter, All4HR, Facebook, All4HR and Business Solutions, and on LinkedIn, All4HR and Business Solutions. Also, don't forget to follow us on our Google page at All4HR. Again, happy Talk About It Thursday. We have the fantastic Amy Forehand, who is the founder of the Forehand Consulting Group. She is joining us today. We're so happy to have you. Thank you for joining us, Amy. Can you hear me clearly?
I can, and thank you for having me, April.
Oh, you are so welcome. I thank you again. The pleasure is all ours. We are so humbled to have you taking time out of your busy schedule to share some things about something that we can never really get enough information about, because a lot of us get the information, but guess what? Don't execute it, right? Right. So I'm gonna share a little bit about Amy. Amy, again, started the Forehand Company in 2019 with a goal to grow employee responsibility, loyalty, and initiative. Her consulting approach is supported with 20 years of experience guiding organizational change and strengthening talent outcomes. Her focus is on creating stronger partnerships between employees and their leaders, and is guided by knowing employees and companies truly thrive when the right conditions are created. She has a very diverse background in engineering, operations, and a human resources blend to uniquely support leaders as they create great cultures on purpose. Thank you again, Amy. We're so glad to have you with us. You know what? Before we get started, remind me before we wrap up for you to drop a plug, because I know you have a seminar coming up, don't you?
I do.
All right. So we want to put that link out for our audience.
Okay.
So
great.
welcome. And I'm so happy to have you join us. Tell us a little bit about, we're talking about creating a great culture. And there are a variety of different synopsises and different theories and all of it. I think it really, it comes down to kind of being, it has to be as simple as possible. Do you agree?
I do.
And so tell us a little bit about what matters most when it comes to creating that great culture.
Yeah. So the approach that I take is really, it has to be grounded in values. Mm-hmm. So having that identification of what is most important from a value and belief standpoint in your organization is critical. But the other piece is you need to understand, why is the culture important to you? and to you meaning for the success of the business. So it also has to be directed towards the strategy and the business outcomes. And if you're not building this culture in support of your business being successful, it's just time and energy on something that might be fun and make you feel good, but it's ultimately not going to create those business results that are going to sustain a work environment that allows you to employ these people you're trying to engage and create a culture for. So you need to be, grounded in the values. It needs to be directed towards the strategy and the business outcomes, but then it has to be delivered through the behaviors and practices that, and especially if it's your company or you're the leader of an organization, that you're modeling and demonstrating every day. So it needs all three pieces of that. And, again, on paper, it sounds pretty simple, but it gets hard when you go to try and figure it out and execute.
This is very true. You're so right. I think one of the things, I work with a lot of small micro businesses, and I always talk about how important it is to start that culture from day one, because a lot of times it's easier to start it, right, as opposed to having to revamp it. So that makes a big difference. But a lot of companies too have to, I think it may be too difficult. But the one thing that really sticks in my mind that you talk about is how important it is that you have those values, and the values, whatever values you have in your business, whether it is, whether it's integrity, whether it is spontaneity, or whether it is caring for your, being caring, and whatever the values you have, that they're set and your employees know those values, and they are like imprinted, in their brains, because it's easy to forget. Especially when you bring on new employees that don't know your culture. You want to make your culture evident right off the bat. Right.
And there's nothing like a new employee to come in and tell you if whatever you had on your website or your recruiting material isn't showing up in the workplace.
Right. Absolutely.
It becomes really, it's really important to say, are these really being lived every day? Can you feel them? Can you experience whatever those values are when you walk through the door and when you're there every day? And sometimes there's hidden values, right? There's stuff that you didn't intend to be valued in the organization that, again, that's where even if you've built it from the ground up, you constantly have to check and say, what are the behaviors that are actually showing up in my organization, and what are those saying we value? And you can replace those with new behaviors that point back towards your foundational pieces that you put in place.
And I like that you said that you can replace those values with new values. So if you see things, it's perhaps a toxic behavior, or maybe, I don't know, maybe your employees, you may see that there's, I don't know, a clique of people, or that may be, causing some toxicity. It's really important that you see those things and those behaviors, and you move to get them eliminated from the organization, because they grow like a bad sore. They really can. And so,
I like the example that you just used about, saying, okay, you're feeling some toxicity there, or, that it feels like there's cliques and people are being excluded. Those are sometimes the symptoms of things. And a lot of times when people talk about wanting to change a culture, they use a description like that. But if you want to take action to make a change, you have to start, I call it peeling the onion, right? So, okay, and you don't even have to dwell on what the current behaviors are, but what do we want the behaviors to be, right? And sometimes we stop and say, well, we want everyone to be included. Okay, that's how they're going to feel, or that's how they're going to, experience the workplace. But what am I going to do when I meet you, April, or when I'm engaging with you? That is the behavior. I'm gonna make eye contact with my fellow employees. I mean, that's a behavior, right? I'm gonna acknowledge everybody in the room when we have a meeting and make sure I ask every person to give their input. That's a behavior that creates inclusion. And so defining those behaviors that really deliver the value you're trying to get to is the critical piece. And that's the piece that when people, I've found when people approach adapting culture, they focus on what the end product is that they want. And they skip okay, what is it going to look like? And what am I going to see people doing? What am I going to hear them saying to each other? What am I going to experience when I use a process? Those are the things that actually create the culture. And so you have to get into the weeds and define those things and say, do we all agree? Now you've got a contract of how we behave here that's going to deliver that value. And that's where the power of creating or adapting a culture really comes in, is those behaviors and practices.
And it's and as you said, it sounds easy, but it's not as easy as it sounds. But I think what's most important, as you said, is getting into the weeds and focusing on what, the behaviors that are not applicable to what you want your culture to look like. But identifying those behaviors, those things that are, because those behaviors should be reflected in how you're talking to your customers, how you're talking to your clients. I always tell my clients, always remember you have two customers. You have internal customers and you have external customers. So how you behave with those internal customers is going to reflect on what's going to be perceived from those external customers, right? And so you gotta begin from the inside out, not outside in. So it makes you get, you have to get in there. And I think it like you said, the plan looks good on paper. You have a nice little plan put together. It's all looking all pretty, and pictures and things like that. But you have to really be able to identify and survey your employees and not only allow them, but encourage them to be honest, to know what your current position is so that you can start in the direction of where you want to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so tell me what's most difficult about leading a great culture? What do you perceive as the most difficult?
And I think you started to get to it in your last comment. If we just pull the string a little bit on great customer service. So if customer service or serving others is a value that you aspire to really build strongly in your organization, you have to make sure that whenever an employee serves a customer with good intent, they're going to be supported, right? And how you respond to maybe when things didn't go well, but there's an opportunity to learn. What is the reaction that you have? So the difficult thing that I found for leading a culture adaptation or creating great culture is the alignment of not only what are the behaviors that we are going to expect, but the creating the leadership, discipline, and modeling of those behaviors.
Okay.
Because employees are going to take the lead from their leaders, and whatever they see their leaders doing, they're going to think it's okay. And I use this example. It was in my house with my children, but it's an example of a behavior. So we have family dinner together whenever, if we are all in the house, we sit down and eat at the same time. And my son is 13 and starting to say, why do we have to do that? But one of our rules with that family time is no phones at the table. It's always been the rule. And a couple weeks ago, my husband pulled out his phone. He said, because we were talking about a video and not all of us had seen it. And so he said, I'm going to make an exception and get my phone and show you. And then, we could continue our conversation. We all knew what everybody else was talking about. And he showed us the video and he put his phone back away. And the next night we sat down to dinner and my son pulls out his phone and starts looking, and my husband and I were like, no, what are you doing? He's like, well, Dad did it last night, and just that one exception. So whatever is important and valued, if there's a behavior that reinforces it, you have to have a discipline. You can't let up on it.
You do.
Because it shows that you're not committed to it as soon as you make an exception to it. And so I would say the leadership courage to do things that people aren't going to want to do. And sometimes you're the only leader out there doing it until others start believing it, is a really lonely, hard journey. It really is. Because people think, where are you going? I don't understand it. I think the other thing that is really difficult is if your organization does not have a future focused planning approach in terms of like setting out business goals that are beyond, like a year, or doing strategic planning, it becomes really difficult to say, what is the culture that's going to enable our outcomes if you don't know what you want your outcomes to be.
Exactly.
Because then you can't define the behaviors that are going to deliver them. And so you just get caught saying, I think we want this, and everybody has kind of their own idea. So it's really important to have a vision and a strategy and some concrete business objectives that you're trying to achieve, so that you can define those behaviors that are going to deliver that and connect it back with your core values. So those are the two pieces I think that I have found people struggle with the most because it's difficult.
Yeah. I think, and especially with smaller companies, it's, it's really hard. You see, for instance, if your business, one of your values is great customer service, but you have employees that go to the client's house and the lead person is saying, we're always saying, okay, we are supposed to do this, but then the leader is not doing that. And so of course, when that leader goes to the customer and he's not doing it, no one else is going to do it. Right. So again, you have to model, and it's we have to really understand that it's about what we do, not what we say. I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's the truth. You can say what you want all day, but are you modeling? Are you doing it? Because if you're not, your employees and your teams are not seeing it, but you're saying it, they're going to do what they see you do as opposed to what you tell them to do. So it's critical that that you're the leaders and the management really shows how you want to treat people, how what the culture is about. So if you're yelling and screaming at other employees, but then you're yelling at someone else because they're yelling at someone else, well, they're only modeling because this is the culture you have, right?
Right.
And so that you can say this is not the type of culture we have or we're aspired to have. But if you're not practicing what you preach, they're going to practice what you practice, not what you preach.
Right.
So it makes a big difference. It makes a huge difference. So what do you say to those who have not created or made creating a great culture a priority? What do you say to those businesses, especially those that are listening or watching this and think,
Yeah.
I don't think my culture is all that great, or even thought about it. Even really giving it some thought. When
Right.
we talk about, I have a program that I have that is coming out, and we talk about how to set up your HR, how to hire your first. And so the very first thing that I talk about is creating the culture. Because it starts with that first person. That first person that you hire, they're going to be answering your phones. They're going to be greeting your customers. They're going to be talking to your customers. What kind of culture do you want them to see?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you want them? How do you want to be perceived? So what do you tell those companies that really haven't even given their culture a thought? They don't even think. Some small companies think they're so small they don't need a culture.
Well, and there's that, and there's this, you're in this race, like you're feeling this pressure to deliver, or I don't have time to do it. But the reality is you don't have to invest a tremendous amount of time to get really big results. And there is a lot of, my undergrad was engineering, so I'm HR and people focused, but I'm also a data nerd, and I love the research, and that's why I went into HR, is because this is a body of science about why people do what they do and what makes organizations successful or not. And I've got a couple stats I'm just going to share with you real quick on, like, for those that need what's the ROI. So I would say, for 2 to 3 hours a week, focusing on your culture, you can increase productivity by up to 20%. You can boost your business outcomes, so your targeted goals that you have, your KPIs, by 30 to 40%. And one study found that over 3 years, companies that have a healthy culture are 1.5 times more likely to report they've got greater than 15% average revenue growth year over year, and 2.5 more times likely to, if you're publicly traded, a significant stock price increase. So, it's not just like, oh, it's that feely stuff. These are real bottom line business results. This is looking at companies that have high culture, investment, and is strong alignment between their culture and their strategy and their brand and their employee experience, and they're bringing it, right? They're not leaving it on the table because they've made this investment. And the other beautiful thing about culture is you don't need a home run. Just a base hit is going to help you, right? It's World Series kicked off this week. Let's talk about that. It's one of those things that any investment you make in this is going to make you incrementally better.
Yes.
So just
I agree.
Start slow, start creating that culture habit. Start with one thing and build on to the next. You don't have to do it as this huge, we're going to do this culture initiative. And
you're right.
Start with one behavior.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Start replacing one bad behavior or one behavior that's not aligned to your goals anymore with something that is. Get that locked in and build in the next one. And you'll get the practice, you'll get that culture muscle memory. And and the other thing is, there's lots of people that can help you do it, right? If you're not sure where to start, bring in somebody to help you. It's gonna ease the pain. Another baseball reference, right?
Right.
Ease their pain. And if you build it, they will come. There you go. If you're having a hard time getting and keeping employees, spend some time on your culture, and you're going to start seeing a change.
Absolutely. I love that how you say just start with one, because a lot of businesses think it's too much because they want to do it all. And, we are in a society where we want results right now. We want to take this one big initiative. We want to put it together and we want results in 2 weeks. But it doesn't happen like that. But it's the perfect thing, like you said, is one to start small with one thing at a time. And take and then, and then gauge if you are seeing results. When you make a change, you let people, let them know that, your employees or your teams, okay, listen, this is something we're going to work on. This is the one thing we're going to start working on. And it has to be from management on down. It has to be across the board. It can't be just non-management. It has to be everyone. It has to be, everyone has to be on board, every single person. And when you start, you make that start, as you said, Amy, others will follow. Right. They will follow. And that those that don't follow, you might have to work a little harder to correct those behaviors. And some may even drop off. But it's important. It's critical to the growth of your company.
Yeah. And I think, when you're talking about the behaviors and others will follow, another thing that is really important for leaders is, leading and building culture does take a lot of emotional intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. You need to be self-aware of, I call it, know your wake. So a boat leaves a wake. If you're a leader of a company, you need to know what you're leaving in your wake. And sometimes you can't see it. Sometimes you need somebody to help that you trust that can say, here's what I'm saying. And you need to be open to listening to it. I was in a meeting, I think 2 weeks ago, and there was a company owner that a new employee was in the room and had some great feedback. They'd been working with all of the people out on the floor. And for 2 weeks, and they said, man, these team members are really sharing with me how much they used to really value these kind of state of the business communications, but they don't get it anymore, and they're kind of upset about it. And the company owner's response was, so I'm messing up. No, the company's owner's response was, thank you. That is information I didn't know. Now I can do something different.
All right. That's critical.
And it's hard because, again, as a leader, everyone likes to criticize you. There's always more you can be doing, but you have to take that in and say, what can I do to make a difference for people, and how am I going to serve them and do that and build this culture so that they can give me everything they want to give. People want to perform. They want to come into an environment where they can be successful and have that initiative and responsibility and ownership, that employeeship. But you got to create the conditions for them to be successful.
And sometimes, and it takes work, but you have to be able to start. That was a perfect example, is how, someone saying, hey, this is what I'm hearing from your teams or your employees. So that's a start right there. It's a place for you to start. So someone's, some behaviors are being, that employees or teams are not happy with, are being shared with you. And a lot of times, we find a lot of leaders, sometimes they take the ostrich in the head in the sand, kind of, and they even make send-hour surveys out and things like that. But when you get the feedback, then you don't act on it.
Right.
And so then that makes the employees feel like they don't have a voice. They're not, they don't have a voice. They're not being heard. And so it makes it really, really difficult to grow a great culture. But, and like you said, I like that you said that it's not this big giant, huge initiative that is like, going to take weeks and weeks to do, but just a start. What would you say to businesses that do not have not even thought about their culture.
I'm going to be a little sarcastic here. I would ask what their employee turnover rate is.
Right.
How's staffing going?
That's an ideal question.
It's hard for everybody, but it's harder.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder for the companies that do not have culture that supports employees in delivering their goals. So, to me, I'm so passionate about it. I'm like, why wouldn't you? Right. Like I said, there's always upside, but I think it feels big and hard, and it feels like maybe a distraction of time and energy, which, I worked for this amazing leader, and he always said, your energy as a leader is a fixed amount. And so you have to be very thoughtful in how you spend that. But he was also a brilliant strategic leader. And so he understood, what do you invest now to give you back time and energy in the future? And so if you're running and you don't have time for it, or you don't think it adds value, what does that energy management look like for you every day? Right? How crazy is your world? Because I would guess that you're just so busy doing stuff that you can't get out of this cycle. And I sometimes talk about culture like a flywheel, right? And so it's this energy accumulator that when things either spike or decline in terms of the input going into the organization, it moderates the energy output. And to me, that's what culture does, right? It gives you some stabilization. So when you have lows, when you have highs, you can go back to that foundation. Everybody knows their behaviors. They know how to act, and they just stay the course. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw companies either thrive or die based on their foundational culture.
The
companies that did not focus on culture before the pandemic did not survive it, or it was horrible, and they're still struggling.
Yes.
And again, if you find yourself in chaos, if you find yourself not finding people, carve off some of that energy, invest in starting to build that culture, defining what it needs to be for you, and you're going to feel some relief in that demand that you have every day.
Nicely put. You are so right. I was listening on a panel a couple months ago, and the young man was saying that when the pandemic started, a lot of companies, really went forward. They really they were communicating, because a lot of them most of them, as a matter of fact, were virtual. They were really communicating. They were communicating once and twice a week, this, that, and the other. But now that, and it's not over, but that some people have kind of, those the strength of the communication that they had in the beginning of the pandemic has kind of fallen by the wayside. And so things are kind of gone back to the way they used to be. And so he said, that it's very important that, you keep that same communication, you keep that same harmony, because believe it or not, we are still in the pandemic. And when you're doing those things to communicate, communication is key among your team. So you have to keep those doors open. You have to keep encouraging that feedback from your employees, and checking to see how they're going, how they're doing, how are things going. Not because it's a pandemic, but because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's really key about, I kind of call it like locking in the culture. So, and this happens a lot too, you get some initial behavior momentum going, but if you don't institutionalize those behaviors, and there's different ways you can do it, but make it so that it's got some staying power, right? So if at the beginning of the pandemic, employee engagement actually surged a little bit
Oh
because all of
yeah.
a sudden managers were calling their employees regularly and talking to them. And I talked to several people who were like, before the pandemic, I heard from my manager like once every 6 weeks.
Hmm.
Like they never talk to me. Now they're calling me all the time.
Hmm.
And all these personal relationships started growing
Hmm.
and cultivating. We went a little too far, but it's like a pendulum. It comes back and finds its balance. But
I
but
like that.
the thing is that, like using that touch point, the
Right.
caring about your employees, personal relationships,
Hmm.
recognizing employees have a life that needs to integrate with work is one of those, I call it a macro culture trend that happened with the pandemic,
Hmm.
and so companies that have now created policies that support that have updated their, maybe it's their performance management systems or their
Hmm.
one-on-one check-ins and said, okay, this is how we do this here. So every employee has that consistent experience, are the ones that are going to sustain that positive change that happened. For those that, don't recognize there's a behavior shift that
Hmm.
happened and go back to where they were, they're going to be at a disadvantage in trying
Yeah.
to create that employee experience and that retention of
Exactly.
employees because they
Exactly.
didn't
Because
institutionalize this
right.
new behavior that was adding value.
Hmm. So like, because when you do it like that, it almost makes it look like when you when you imp- when you did those behaviors, when you were showing that you cared, and then you stop it all, it it reflects to your employees that, hey, maybe they really didn't care, maybe they were doing it because they thought everybody else was doing it.
Yeah.
And so, when people really can grab onto those relationships and really understand that, okay, they care, they wanted to know how we were doing, this, that, and the other, and then you stop, that has a huge a negative effect on your employees, and definitely on your culture,
Right.
because it's just how you're being, it's the perception. And as you said there, it's about you as a leader. They're watching what you do. They're watching the behaviors that you are that you're exhibiting with your team, and they're modeling those same ones.
Right.
So it
Yep.
makes a huge difference. I believe in that. I thought it was wonderful how things, the pandemic kind of brought a lot of people together. Um, but it's important that we keep that momentum, Amy. That because we're still in a pandemic, and so people are still stressing out about this thing. I was
They
telling a
are.
friend of mine a couple of weeks ago. I said, "Yeah, we're going into 2 years with this," and she said, "You're kidding." No, yeah, we're going into 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we needed we needed to take those things, because although the pandemic was not a good thing, I believe there were some good things that came out of it. And I believe bringing people together and companies together and people caring for each other was one of the many good things that came from it. It's something that we should really think about and keep in mind, that there was this, it brought some good things. Some good things happened.
Yes.
Absolutely. So tell me, what one thing would you want to share with our off what would your final thoughts be, um with our audience, Amy?
Yeah. I think the most important thing is spend some time talking about what a great culture would look and feel like for you.
Mhm.
And, grounded in what your company needs in order to be a successful company. Because again, if you're not a successful company, you don't have any employees to create a culture for.
Mhm.
So, define what that is,
Mhm.
and then talk about what behaviors do we see people doing every day? Do some visioning work and say, what's it going to look like? How are they talking to each other? What are we doing? What are our processes? What policies do we have in place? And now you've got your future state, and you can bounce that against what you're doing now and start making some choices on how you're going to behave differently. Maybe some policies you want to change, and just start knocking them out one at a time. And you're going to see that positive shift. And again, it doesn't take a lot of time. If you could even dedicate 45 minutes a week to just starting to do this, you're going to see, especially if you're a small company, you're going to see great output within a couple months. If you're a little bigger, it might be 9 to 12 months before you see results, but still makes next year better.
Absolutely. Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Right. Not something to look forward to, and something that is lasting. You make those changes in your organization, in your company, whether it's small and you're growing, whether it's large. Those are things that will carry you forward. It's businesses is yes, it's about making money, yes, but it's not just about making money. It's about bettering your life, bettering the lives of your employees, whatever you are providing to your customers, improving their lives. So it's a whole circle of things. And you as a business owner are like right in the middle, right? You're like the nucleus of everything else. So it makes a big difference. It makes a huge difference.
It does.
So now tell me, you have a seminars coming up.
I do.
Tell us about that seminar that's coming up.
These are so funny, bro. I call it Grow the Talent That Grows the Talent, and it's called Grow HR. And it's designed for HR professionals who they have some contribution that they can give beyond the getting all their positions filled and the compliance and investigations and all the stuff that is required in the job. But these are really some of the strategic roles of HR professionals. So it's perfect for people who are wanting to maybe find that next level HR position, or people who maybe have come into an HR role who don't have an HR background. So maybe you were a small company, you were the CFO, now you have HR responsibilities. People are talking about culture. You're not sure what, where do I start? What do I do? And so what it is I'm actually partnering with Washtenaw Community College, and they are a certified credit provider through SHRM. So, if you're have those credentials, you're going to get your continuing education units. But it's 5 weeks. It's virtual for this session, which starts next Thursday, November 4th. And the first session is we talk about what is your HR plan that's going to deliver business outcomes for the company. Because as an HR function, you're there to make sure that talent in the organization delivers on the company's goals. And so what is your plan going to be to deliver on those company goals? So we work on your plan. So if you've got this deliverable, you'll walk out of the session with it completed. And then we talk about employer branding. So how are you showing up to prospective employees, both, and who are you as an employer for the employees you have now? How do you understand that? How do you change that if it's a problem? Then we talk about how do you partner with that business owner. So maybe you are in HR and your business owner needs to focus on culture a little bit more. How do you have that conversation and come at them as a partner that's going to help them be successful in the leadership of their business? And then we talk about ROI. So I always say, if you're in HR, you should be best friends with the CFO. And because if you can't have a conversation about the financials of the investment, because people are the biggest investment that a company makes, And as an HR owner, you need to understand that investment, and you need to be able to quantify the ROI of the investments that you're asking for. So how do we substantiate the return on investment for our HR programs, performance management? How do we know it's worth it in time and energy and in cost? And then our last one is being a culture ambassador. And what is the role of HR in helping to guide leaders and employees through a culture adaptation change, and staying in the right lane as an HR professional, but then making sure that you can be that change champion and support for creating great culture. So it's a lot of fun. I did one last spring, and the people who attended, one of the attendees said, I went to my CEO, who was a founder of a tech startup, and brought to him my HR plan. He said, I got it all funded, and it was the first time it's ever happened.
Oh my goodness.
It's because we did this work together. And he was able to show up in a different way, bring that ROI, make that ask with a lot of evidence on why they needed to do these things. And then one other is now a director of human resources for a statewide organization, and she was in facilities before that. So, there's your ROI for Grow HR too, right?
All right.
It's a lot of fun.
Wait a minute. What did we do? Here we go. I was putting the link for people to go and find out more about the program that you're going to be presenting beginning on November 4th.
Yes.
All right. And I've also put Amy's LinkedIn profile. So make sure you're going over there on LinkedIn and checking out her page and seeing how finding out about Amy and finding out about the Forehand company. And I am dropping the link for the program.
Great, thank you.
So everybody, be able to go ahead and she's talking about creating an HR plan for your company, and this program is ideal for HR professionals. So you want to check it out, and it's created in conjunction with Washtenaw County Community College.
Yep.
Perfect. So you guys go ahead, and Amy, thank you so much for joining us. I know I appreciate you. I know we ran behind schedule, so thank you for that.
Hey, life happens, right?
You have
we
no
need
idea
to be
what
able
I was
to flex. So not a problem at all.
I appreciate you. We're going to have to get together before the end of the year and have lunch.
Yes.
So we can meet in person.
That would be wonderful.
I thank you for being on the show. And we appreciate you. I am humbled with you spending some time with us and our audience and sharing about great culture. Because again, the tips that you shared, one is start one at a time, right? Just select one behavior that you don't like and start with that one behavior.
Yeah.
And then go from there. It's I'm not saying it's an easy task, but it's critical if you want to grow your business. You want to grow that company, because we don't like those revolving doorways, right?
Yeah.
where the people are going, our employees are going in and out, right? Going out as quick as they're coming in. I know you've seen some places, cultures like that.
I have to share. I thought it was a hilarious conversation. I was talking to somebody, and they said they were in staffing, and they were trying to help this company, and they said, oh my gosh, this company hired 140 people last year. And I said, how many people do they employ? She said 145.
Oh no.
I said, oh my goodness. That's not a staffing issue, that's a culture issue.
Oh boy.
So
145 people
that's got that much turnover, give me a call.
Please give me a call.
Yeah.
Wow. That is huge. That is 140 people, and oh my goodness.
Yeah. But it's tough right now, and we get so in it, and we got to lift up and get ourselves out of that cycle. So
Absolutely.
I had so much fun talking to you today, April. This
Oh,
was
I
great.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking with you, Amy. I really did. I look forward to talking with you again. And again, I truly humbled that you spent some time with us and sharing some great information. I want those, when you watch this, make sure you let us know where you're watching it from, and be sure to go on over to Amy's page. I've dropped the link below for the grow HR, grow your HR, the program that Amy is starting with on November 4th. So all that information, I put the link for you to go on over there and check that out. If you're an HR professional and you want some direction, looking to go higher as an HR professional, this is ideal for you. Okay, Amy, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you again and talking with you. Have a wonderful, wonderful Talk About It Thursday. And I will see you soon, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at All4HR. We are on Twitter at All4HR. We are on LinkedIn at All4HR and Business Solutions. We also have the Facebook group. If you haven't had a chance and you're a HR professional or small business owner, you want to come over to the Small Business HR Success Hub. Come on over and join our Facebook group. It is open and it is free. We're sharing all kinds of HR tips, always sharing different aids, answering questions, and all kinds of great stuff. So go on over there and we'll be glad to have you. Have a wonderful Talk About It Thursday, everybody. Amy, thank you so much. Folks, don't forget, business can be like a circus. Don't let HR be the elephant in the room. Until next week, everyone, we'll see you. Have a great day. Stay safe and wear your mask. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Amy.